Hey everyone, Kyle Copey and Dave Gordon back here talking about lady cops. So back in 2019, a officer, a lady cop for the San Bernardino, of course this is California, San Bernardino County Deputy Megan McCarthy was brutally beaten by an assailant that she showed up on the scene for. And our take on this is that this all could have been avoided if you didn't have females on the police force. But we'll get to that in just a second. We want to show you the video of this. Again, this happened back in 2019, but the court case just got settled, and the perpetrator was actually found not guilty on many of the charges. He was found guilty on a very lesser charge. We'll talk about that, but let's show you what actually happened back in 2019. This is Deputy Megan McCarthy showing up on scene, and here we go.
Now new tonight at 6, a shocking verdict. A local man found not guilty of attempted murder after violently beating a San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputy and firing a gun at her. Tonight, that now former deputy is speaking out about the attack and the acquittal.
Okay, so first of all, I want to preface this by saying that, we're not making light of this woman's assault. I mean, she suffered injuries to her face. She suffered a broken thumb during this whole thing. She could have lost her life because this guy basically point blank got her gun, aimed at her face, pulled the trigger. The gun malfunctioned, which allowed Officer McCarthy to get up and run away. He then fired after her, not hitting her. But she could have very well been dead. So I don't want anyone to get, be under the impression that we're like making fun of this woman for whatever. But again, this could have all been avoided. Dave, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to quote Pope Leo XIII, who says, "Women, again, are not suited for certain occupations. A woman is by nature fitted for homework, and it is that which is best adapted at once to preserve her modesty and to promote the good upbringing of children and the well-being of family." Obviously, we're not making light of this, and I feel like that is a note worth making here, because as public discourse has coarsened, you do get a lot of people making light of certain things that they think are political points for them that are, in fact, it's just not appropriate to laugh at. Now, obviously, because this lady is in a role that she is so ill-fitted for, she's so ill-suited for, there's a certain part of kind of the fallen human nature where you get a bit of schadenfreude, perhaps, seeing somebody tossed around and ragdolled who is, has been told her whole life, like, oh, you're a butt kicker. You're a butt kicker woman. You can do anything that a man can do. So part of this is like poetic justice, not that her life was endangered, of course, and not that this person was doing something to her, assaulting her, battering her. Those are all, wicked misdeeds and whatnot. But the fact is that we've been told so long that women are equal to men in basically athletic ability, and that women athletes should be paid as much as men, and that women can be every place that a man can be, that when this happens, when people come face to face with reality, and they can't deny what's before their waking eyes anymore, there's a certain part of you that gets schadenfreude. And that's not, you rejoicing at somebody's misfortune. It's really you rejoicing at, like, justice or truth being made manifest. At the same time, I'm pulled in different directions, because although I am glad whenever truth is made manifest in such an obvious fashion that even the left is forced to bump headlong into reality and to gaze upon with their waking eyes the fetid consequences of their pernicious ideology, their upside down worldview, their denial of sex differences. At the same time, we have to recognize, like, this is gross, heinous behavior, and this animal that did this to her, deserves to be behind bars for the rest of his natural life, because, this is attempted murder, obviously. This guy's trying to kill this cop. But yeah, women shouldn't be out there. This is a systemic failure. We talk about like systemic justice so much in the era of BLM, and we have the left like distorting that to make it mean that you have to like pay reparations to people who were not even themselves victims of an inequitable system. But, you know, you have to pay reparations for sins of people that I didn't even know about 200 years ago, to people, again, that I had no contact with or that I did not harm in any way. We're so used to hearing about systemic justice in that sense that we like almost forswear on the right the idea of systemic justice in the true sense, which is we want a system that recognizes truth. We fundamentally want a political system that recognizes and platforms and elevates truth. And right now we have one that does the opposite of that. It subverts it. We're floating this androgyny, this sexual androgyny, where we are living in a hyper-egalitarian society that downplays all differences between men and women, and there are many. You know, the sexes are absolutely, we have this dichotomy in the human race of differences in the sexes. They're very different. Women are not suited for the same functions as men, and men are not suited for the same functions as women. And feminists they find that idea, that fact, hateful, and they have for so long, that we've almost got it into our heads that we can't say these things, and the system has actually institutionalized the lie that men and women are equal and the same, and they are not. And this is proof of it. Women are weak. They're the weaker sex. It's 1 Peter 3, 1-7. It's something we have to recognize. They're not suited for police work. They're not suited for combat. They're not suited for a lot of things that men do. And again, this is just, this is the Pope. We can just quote the church on this. And let me dig up the quote here. Women in war or parliament are outside their proper sphere, and their position there would be the desperation and ruin of society. And that's, again, that's Pope Pius X, not Pope Leo XIII, as we had just quoted. But Pope Pius X says this. So, you know, obviously police work is an analog for war. And in fact, many soldiers get out of service in the military and become policemen. So those are opening thoughts, Kyle. Kicking it back to you.
Yeah, women are just not suited for this type of work, and unfortunately, yes, granted the gruesomeness of it, if it had to happen this way to display that, I think you're right. You know, the silver lining, if you want to call it that, with this situation is it, as you said, shows truth comes forward, and it shows this reality blunt right in your face, as gruesome as it is. That's what it's showing people. So just to give people a little bit of background here. So Officer Megan McCarthy is the closest one to this incident, what's going on. Dispatchers receive a 911 call. It's a 911 call from this perp's wife. This guy, he's described as being schizophrenic. I don't know if he's had run-ins with the law before, but whatever. He's an unhinged dude, obviously. His mom is actually the one who calls 911, says, we need someone over here. And then the phone line kind of goes dead, and that's a cue to dispatchers saying, hey, you need to get someone there right now. She's the closest one, unfortunately. She shows up, and, you know, it's on from the moment she gets there. You know, she could have waited for backup. She didn't. You know, for better or for worse, she probably felt she had to step in and do something. She gets out of her car immediately. This guy approaches her. The mom is trailing him, still on the phone with 911. She's got a knife in her hand. So even this guy's mom feels like she has to defend himself from her son. And, you know, McCarthy tries to de-escalate the situation. She tries to give the guy a pat down. And I think this is, you know, I'm not a police proceduralist, but I don't know. This seems like, you know, where she went wrong. This guy doesn't need a weapon to pummel her. You know, and he didn't have a weapon, from what I understand. You know,
Well, there's a fundamental not coming to grips with that reality, though. They've been lied to their whole lives. These women have been told that they're tough, that they can get a little bit of training. They've seen it on the movies. You know, you teach a 145-pound woman karate, and she's like beating up Bruce Willis or something. They've been lied to their entire lives and told that they're tough, and told that if they put on like a badge and a uniform, that somehow transforms their frail physiques and makes them worthwhile as officers. So I think that's where that came from.
Probably, because all this guy had to do, like, again, he didn't have a weapon. She had everything. All he had to do was grab her hand while she was giving him the pat down. He instantly broke her thumb while doing that. And then he just starts, you know, pounding her in the face, you know, with haymakers, knocks her to the ground. And, you know, the rest of the incident ensued, as I described. He takes her gun from her, points it at her. Thanks be to God it didn't go off correctly. He pulled the trigger, and she was able to get away. But, I mean, it just goes to show you the ridiculousness of this situation. She should have never been put in it. She should have never put herself in it. You know, society should not allow her and other women who think they need to go out and do this stuff to be put in that situation.
Where are the fathers and husbands saying no? That's the thing. Like, where are the men? It's ultimately feminism, and everything that comes from feminism is a failure of men to just say no. Oh, you know, it's not like these women rose up and grabbed this power, which is like the narrative, right? That's the mantra. Oh, these foremothers rose up and broke away from their shackles. It's like, no, our lazy ass forefathers just ceded power and authority where they shouldn't have. Where's this woman's husband or father just be like, yeah, you're not going to do that. Actually, that's not your role at all. And what you're actually doing, you know, is endangering the lives of the real men that have to do the real police work. And you're there for like the photo ops. You're there to play dress up and to fill out this uniform and feel important. But there's actually real men you're endangering because of your incompetence at your job, that, you know, they have to do your job for you also. This is so ridiculous. This is why I roll my eyes and cringe every time we have to talk about, like, you know, when it comes to like Veterans Day, you know, are men and women in uniform, they're heroes. No, the men in uniform, many of them are heroes. The women in uniform, they're there endangering men. By the very fact that they've put themselves into an environment that they're not suited for, it actually endangers the lives of like their entire platoon. Because their weakness, you know, the military is very much, it's a corporate reality. It's not individualistic in any way. So it's not like if one individual isn't doing their duties, you know, it's just on them and they're going to get in trouble. And it's only going to have ramifications personally. And that's absolutely not right. It's a team thing. The military is only has strength in the aggregate. It only has strength as a team. It only has strength corporately. So when one person is like lagging in their duties, and this is very much the case for police forces too, when one person can't do their duties, it brings down the whole combat effectiveness of the military, the whole combat effectiveness of their unit, the whole combat or, you know, police effectiveness of like a squadron or something. So, like, not only do we not thank these women, like, you know, lady, you did a bad thing. You're doing a disservice. You are not a public servant. You are a public leech. You're a public vulture. You're doing us a disservice by being where you are, and you've almost, through your foolishness in drinking the Kool-Aid of a society that's run away, that's been smitten with and taken by hyper-egalitarian fairy tales, you almost cost yourself your life.
And you mentioned, well, yeah, it cost herself her own life, deprived her own children of a mother, because she is married. You mentioned the question of where's the husband on this. She is a mother of 2 children, so that could have went sideways really fast. And thanks be to God, after this incident, she's not going back on the force. She resigned due to PTSD. Okay.
They also get that more. That's something that we've seen in when women have been put in military service and have seen active combat. Actually, one of the things is their psyche is not cut out for it. So again, don't buy the lie of women are tough. No, they're frail and they're weaker, both physically and mentally. And it means their psyche too. Because they're the nurturing sex, they're the caring sex, they're the tender sex. When they see like blood and guts and they have near-death experiences and, their best friend's face is turned into a pile of goo in combat, they're not cut out for it, nor should they be, because that's not what God designed them for. God gives you charisms and gifts to suit your specific role in life. That's what he does, which makes sense because he's preparing you for your vocation and to be successful at it. Since women aren't designed to be protectors, then they get PTSD from it. So this is a very much related thing, Kyle. I'm glad you brought up the PTSD point because that's really part and parcel of the issue. It's not just, and you'll hear this from the apologists for women in the military, apologists for women in the police force. They'll be like, well, maybe it was the case that women shouldn't have been soldiers 200 years ago when they had to carry around a 150-pound rucksack all the time. And they couldn't do that. But now that we have modern weaponry and lighter gear, and they don't have to basically act as mules and carry all this stuff, then they can have a place in the military because it's more machinery based. They have combat vehicles. It's not about speed and strength anymore. It's like, no, but they also lack the mental tools. They lack the psyche. They lack the frame of mind that makes them hardened killers that are suitable as soldiers and, just hardened people who will thrive in a police force. And there are other issues too, because even beyond just, are you able to heft 150 pounds on your back and carry it for 10 miles? There's also just women are more prone to injury. Their bones are more brittle, so they're going to be out and on the government dole and getting cared for in like military hospitals actually more often than their male colleagues and their male peers. So there's that too. There's about 1 billion issues, but the psyche issue is a serious one. And the PTSD thing, that's not an accident. This is actually other countries who have experimented with women in combat have noted the PTSD connection and have come to conclusions that, yeah, women aren't suited for combat.
Perhaps this is why my wife doesn't like to watch action movies with me. I think that's that's really, the explanation there. But, people are lamenting the fact that she had to resign. It's not just like they don't get it. The message is not coming through for them that women shouldn't be on the force. Betsy Bratner Smith, a retired police sergeant who is the spokesperson for the National Police Association. Okay, another lady cop. She
got there based on her merit. I'm going to give a hint. She didn't get that position because she deserved it. She got it for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Had nothing to do with merit. She was a terrible cop.
Probably, and I'm glad she is also retired. But she had this to say about this whole situation. So Bratner Smith says this of Officer McCarthy. She not only gets beat up, stripped of her firearm, and nearly gets killed, she loses her career. This is how she pays her mortgage, takes care of her family. I hope not. I hope the husband's not relying on her to pay the mortgage and provide for the family.
Is there anything more emasculating than that? It's like, not only does my wife protect me from burglars and make sure the house is locked up at night and go on patrol at night, she also pays all my bills. It's like, man, that is emasculating. That's pretty brutal. My wife protects me and provides for me. She also tucks me in and gives me my teddy bear at night.
Yeah, I don't know what the husband's doing. Maybe he's at home doing a podcast or something like that, not paying the bills at all. But I do want to ask you, since you are the resident lawyer on this show, I do want to ask you about some of the legal stuff here, sort of getting away from the lady cop issue, but just sort of the legal issues surrounding this. Again, this happened in liberal California. who knows about the juries there and what kind of, bias they have based on so-called police brutality and all this stuff. But this perpetrator, he was found not guilty on, on the charge of attempting, to resist arrest, on the charge of attempted murder against this officer. You can clearly see that's what's happening in the video. His defense lawyer claimed that, he wasn't shooting at McCarthy, and this wasn't a legal arrest. So basically, I mean, this is the defense lawyer. He actually says this. He says the issue was the initial detention of Mr. Young. Was it legal? And if it wasn't legal, then he's not guilty. He could have punched her 100 times, and that wouldn't matter. So is this how the law works, Dave? If you're detained illegally by a cop, you can try to kill the cop? Is that how that works?
I don't know what kind of jacked up laws they have in California. I was never barred there. I practiced criminal law, but not in California. The laws for resisting an unlawful arrest are going to vary jurisdictionally. So there's nowhere that I know of where you can murder somebody because they're trying to put you in unlawful detention. I do believe there's a jurisdictional split on whether you can resist an unlawful arrest, though. And that's just me hearkening back to like a feeble memory from a decade ago when I was more in the midst of like criminal law type stuff and an actual legal career. Obviously, I've gone the Catholic route with my later career. So I believe there's nowhere where you can attempt to murder somebody for putting you under even a false arrest.
I assume the resistance, if it is allowed, wouldn't involve punching someone multiple times in the face and trying to murder them.
That's going to go ahead and be my gut feeling as well.
But they did find this guy guilty. I mean, thanks be to God. I guess they got him on one charge. I don't know, what kind of penalties this carries, but they did find him guilty of the lesser charge of the negligent discharge of a firearm. I don't know. What does that do for this guy?
Oh, I mean, that's like a misdemeanor. I'm sure. Yeah, so he's not going to go do any hard time for negligently discharging a firearm. I just don't understand that. How do you what? They have him on video trying to shoot somebody, and that works in court? I got to get this guy's defense attorney for like my next speeding ticket. Raj
Malin out of Los Angeles.
Negligently discharging his firearm at her face. Like, that doesn't pass the smell test after beating her up and breaking her bones. That sounds like a load of manure, but I guess whatever. I mean, it's California, so who knows what like all the BLM activists on the jury would be prone to believe. But I mean, ultimately, and obviously the perpetrator, again, he should never see the light of day. He would lock him up, throw away the key. Violent, murderous felon, thug that, society is much better off with that guy just absolutely shuttered behind bars forever. Take him off the streets. But, I mean, the real lesson here, I think, is just that women have been lied to. The system has lied to them. The men in their lives have lied to them because they didn't want to tell them the hard truth, that you're not cut out for this, that you're not tough, that you're frail. We haven't been able to say these obvious things for so long because the Overton window has become so, distorted towards the left's narrative that just saying truth, men are men and women are women, you can't change your sex, women aren't good at sports, competitive sports aren't good for women in the first place, a lot of these things that they just recognized intuitively as part of the human condition for the rest of human history, we're not allowed to say anymore. So we're setting people up to live a delusional life, to live a life that is in accord with fairy tales and fables. And then ultimately that has consequences. Ideas have consequences. That's the problem. Ideas have consequences, and when you have bad ideas, they're going to yield bad consequences. And people are coming face to face with that. And I do think that there's a role for people in publicizing this, in, not like spiking the football, and because we don't want to celebrate this woman's misfortune, because she's partly, she's obviously doing the wrong thing with her life, and she's taken her career, not that she should have a career in the first place as a married woman, but she's taken her career in the wrong direction. Um, you know, so she's in a certain sense a victim, although obviously it's by her own agency, so she's at fault too. But it's because of ideological war, and we've sacrificed a lot of people to the wolves for that. So there is a role, though, in pundits, in media guys, in, this podcast, like bringing this forward and being like, look, this is what happens. This is an example of feminist ideology coming face to face with reality. We should also do one where we're getting the women's soccer team getting absolutely creamed and dogged by like the under 15 boys soccer team.
The high school team, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The high school team, like, putting it on the Olympians who deserve this equal pay with male athletes and all that nonsense. It's like, well, it's time for a reality check. It's time you come face to face with what the truth is so that you can't deny it. There's too much denial of this stuff, man. I even remember being in law school and talking to, like, peers and colleagues about, like, constitutional law issues, where some of these issues of sexual parity in the law and egalitarianism in the law were being debated, and you have the Supreme Court weighing in on these things, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg like forcing the Virginia Military Institute to take women when it had been all male up to a certain point. And no one can wrap their mind around you just being like, yeah, but women aren't good soldiers, so that's the end. As a matter of fact, this is a true story. I'm not embellishing this at all. My female constitutional law teacher was so flummoxed by what some of my points were in class. I'm not kidding. She actually challenged me. I kind of had a mic drop line where I was like, yeah. The day that any of these broads can beat me in an arm wrestling match, then women can be like in the military. That's just it. And she's like, well, she challenged me to an arm wrestling match. So no embellishment, in front of the class. I walked down and I just like smacked her arm on the table and like, dusted my hands off and walked back up. There's
video of this? I want to see video.
There's no video. Damn. But it lives in the lore of my law school to this day. But look, I think there is a certain value in just being like, here's reality, here's the video of reality, here's what it is when you put your theory to the test. Because too many people, and this is where I was going with the law school story, will kind of hide behind like vagaries and like this ridiculous pie in the sky notion of like this ass kicker type woman who doesn't exist, but they've been groomed to believe exists by seeing enough movies with, again, women who know karate or whatever fighting 6 guys at a time. So like, oh, well, I couldn't do it, but I've met women who are total butt kickers. Like, no, you haven't. They're all wimpy. They're all wimpy as hell. And they're all, when they're in these roles, are complete drags on their department. They're drags on the military. They're wet blankets, and they're useless in these roles. And they need to be expelled, and they need to be put back in their place, which is, well, not in the police force and not in the military. That's for darn tootin'.
Yeah, it's a unfortunate situation, but yeah, like you said, it takes something like that to let the truth shine through. On a closing note, in doing a little research on the literally the lady cop issue, there was an old comic back in the 1970s literally called Lady Cop. And you know, needless to say, it didn't do that well. I don't think there were many issues of it, but it did exist. You can find it out there. You know, little tiny woman on the front, big bad dude on the, you know, kicking the butt of a big bad dude. Just doesn't happen. No one wants to see that. No one wants to see Jennifer Lopez be a sniper, and you know, they don't even do well at the box office. That should go to show you something, right? All right, yeah. Dave, any parting words before we close up?
I mean, I think we really hit all the main points. I would just say don't be afraid to tell the truth on these issues, because again, society is failing these people. Society is failing the female soldiers, like the female Marines and female police officers, by not just saying what the truth is. And you know, the truth hurts for a minute, but then it sets you free. And we don't want to see our daughters and wives getting curb stomped by the vermin of the Los Angeles streets. We do want to see them protected, and just thrusting them into roles that they're not suited for by nature is quite a disservice to them. And it's basically like affirming somebody at the expense of their actual physical integrity and mental integrity. So just don't do it. I think we owe women more than that. And I think it's time to speak bluntly certain truths that we've been told are anathema to modern society. And I think there's a role out there for us to do that more than ever now.
There you go. Fathers, keep your daughters off the streets. They are not gumshoes. All right, people. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you next time. Please like this video. Subscribe to our channel. Please help us out. Support us on Patreon. Hit the link below. We'll see you next time. God bless you.